Hey everybody, welcome to Easy Update. Just a heads up, this episode we'll talk about some stuff that'll be a little unpleasant, like depression and self-harm and things like that. So it's meant to be helpful and illuminating, but if that stuff bothers you in any way, just heads up on that. But yeah, I thought that Huber and I would talk about sadness, depression, grief, like depression in all of its forms, both causal and chemical.
Yeah.
Because it's a weird thing that happens to just about everybody, and it's okay, and it's not a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a problem, but it's not. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Is what I mean.
There's so many emotions attached to it.
Yeah.
I've just been thinking lately, sometimes I'm mad depressed, sometimes I'm sad depressed, sometimes I'm guilty depressed, and it's just so many ranges, so many avenues of depression. I just don't. It's overwhelming.
That's a good way to put it, I think, because yeah, sometimes I too get you get for me, I have it's nihilistic depressed. I want to like the Joker or something. I want to watch the world burn.
Yeah.
I want to throw the rubies away.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of a thing. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I could talk about my experience, I guess, and you could talk about your experience. So I was diagnosed with chronic depression when I was 13, which was not great. And then they put me on Paxil, which was not approved for kids, apparently, by the FDA.
Is that one still around?
I think so, yeah. I missed out on a class action lawsuit, apparently. I didn't think about it, but I looked years later, and I was like, oh.
Aaron Brockovich hype.
Aaron Brockovich. Never seen that. Dude. It's one of your faves, right?
Soderbergh.
Really? Oh, yeah. I forgot. Love Soderbergh. Yeah, and Paxil just knocked the top and bottom off of all my experience. I just kind of was there and didn't care for that. So around 18, it's kind of funny. I got a book called The Healing Power of Qigong and started doing a chi breath kind of a thing that I learned from that book and a few of the moves, but I didn't really even read the whole thing. I just got the chi breath. And it's the way the book described it is you breathe in 3 count through the nose, then you hold it for 3, then you breathe out 3 in the mouth, and then you hold it out for 3, and then you repeat. And it's kind of difficult sometimes to you feel like you don't have enough air in your lungs,
Yeah.
But it keeps your mind on that and occupied and stuff. And I found that was really helpful for me. But it wasn't for another, I don't know, decade that I would say that I had beaten depression, I guess. It wasn't until I was 26 when my mom, or 27 when my mom died, when everything kind of came into focus for me more. And I had already been doing years and years of work and practice and trying to, and seeing therapists and all that kind of stuff, trying to get through it. But then when she died, I was, devastated. But it scaled everything and made me realize what matters and what doesn't matter. And it was helpful in a weird way in that because it kind of solidified who I was and how I felt and everything.
Yeah.
But it's an ongoing thing. That's the thing you realize is
do you ever really beat it?
Right. And
manage it?
I think in a way you do, because there comes a point, at least for me, where I didn't feel that way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think part of my brain copes with stuff is through distancing, depersonalization kind of stuff. And that got so stressful for me that I actually saw a therapist out here when I moved to LA, first when I moved here, about that specifically, depersonalization. So for me, what that meant was it felt like I was watching my life like a movie. And so I was floating back here and things were just kind of happening. Tom's Diner, that song. Da, 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 da. She's kind of just describing things that are happening. Florence,
so your body's on autopilot or something.
Kind of, yeah. Fleabag kind of gives me that vibe too. She's not a sociopath, but I've only seen the first couple episodes. I'm loving it so far. But so don't spoil me. But Yeah, and so that was getting really stressful for me. But then that therapist said, like, well, what if that's just how you see the world? What if that's okay? And I was just like, what?
Epiphany.
Permission to be myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now my dad died like a few months ago, and so like grief is sadly familiar to me, and also depression and stuff is familiar to me, and like there are moments of depression that feel like an old friend has come back. It's like a blanket, you know, it like feels good in a weird way to be like, it's like justifiable sadness.
Yeah.
It's like a righteous sadness, and it feels like good in a
when
weird
you watch
way.
a really depressing movie, that kind of feeling, or
Sort of. It's just like you get to like it's like in movies where I haven't ever done drugs, but like in movies where people like get back on a drug, and like the look on their face is like, you know, like they're like giving into it, and like there's sort of that element of it, like depression coming back is like, oh, I remember you, and it remembers me. But now I have the tools to deal with it, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like I've been talking for a really long time.
No, I mean, it's good to hear it from you, dude, because just like I'm going through it now for the first time, really, you know? Like I had depression, never been diagnosed, but I like was depressed when like my first girlfriend and I broke up because we were each other's firsts, and like there's that type of like
natural kind of sadness.
Yeah, but like that, I thought that was like so bad at the time, and now because my brother passed away, I'm going through this. It's like it just puts everything in perspective.
Right.
So it's good to hear from you. Just like it gets easier, or like gets easier to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to grief, like I don't think it ever goes away.
Yeah.
But
it's just I don't know. I never know what to do, dude, because it's like there's so many feelings. I'm like guilty for breathing, you know? I feel guilty to throw the Dodgers on.
Right.
Because my brother can't, because he got dealt a shitty hand,
you
know? He never did drugs. He's not a fucking smoker or anything, like, out of the blue. So then that gets me, like, angry, you know? One of my best friends has smoked, like, a pack a day for, like, 20 years. He's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not holding it against one of my best friends, obviously, but it's just like
George Burns, right? Cigar a day and lived to be like 100 and whatever.
Yeah. It's just like, and then thinking about how the randomness of life and like how everything can change in a second is like scary. So there's like fear and guilt and sadness and confusion. So I'm thinking of everything. And then all of those are just like this depression cocktail that like paralyzes me on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some heavy shit.
Yeah.
Just try to laugh, dude. Just try to take it a day at a time and just try to think like what he would want. You know, he was my big brother. He protected me, looked out for me. Even going through this whole thing, he tried to keep me distanced from it.
Yeah.
You know,
my dad was the same way. It was like,
yeah.
You could tell like he didn't want to leave us because he was used to providing, you know, but also like was worried about how this was all making us feel, you know, and it was just like, you know, we can take it, just be there for you right now, you know, like
that line in Deadpool 1 where he's like, because Wade Wilson gets cancer or whatever, and he's like, you know, the shitty part of cancer isn't what it does to you, it's what it does to everyone around you, you know. He's talking about it, and like that hit me hard. I rewatched it. Bad timing.
Yeah.
I was like, I forgot he has fucking cancer.
Right.
Like, ugh.
We when I was home with my dad, like we were watching movies together a lot, and like we threw on Stranger Than Fiction because it was always like a favorite of his and a favorite of ours or whatever. And then I like, you know, almost immediately after we hit play, I was like, oh wait, this is all about like imminent death.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
whoops.
I mean, like it was fine, but it was just kind of intense.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah,
but those associations don't go away.
And they're limitless.
Yeah.
Limitless associations. Like everywhere I go, everything I do, I'm thinking about him.
Yeah.
It's like nonstop. The only thing he didn't like was the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Hey,
But
safe.
even like I said, even that makes me think about it because
Right.
then when I'm watching it, I was like, I was
Like, he didn't like
thinking
it.
like, yeah, he didn't like it. Like, could never get him into it.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about stuff like that where it's like, oh yeah, my dad will never get to read this new book by this author we both used to read, or like see this new show that he was excited for, or
Yeah.
and it's just kind of part of it. And like, it makes me really terrified of getting sick, of like health problems myself.
Yeah.
Cause like, shoot, man, I want to live forever. You know, like I want to like San Junipero me, like I want to
Yeah.
live forever. And like,
Orochimaru.
yeah, well, I don't know, but do they live forever? Is that a person?
It's the Naruto villain that tries to.
I'm fully
immortal.
Orochimaru. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would do anything.
It's the best. It's the best reason for immortality because he's like, I want to learn everything,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna be able to learn everything unless I can live forever. So it's like, I love that. Like, it's not really a twist on immortality, but it's like a reason for it.
Right.
I think it's cool.
I mean, yeah, I never want to stop like doing things, making things, like learning and seeing things. Yeah. But like, you know, it's not in the cards. And like you said it before, life is just random, you know? And like, there's no reason.
No, dude. And then you turn on the news and there's friggin' mass shootings and it's friggin' horrible. So depressing.
Yeah.
People are hurting. People are dying. Freaks me out, dude. I gotta. But then, right? Then I question myself, like, am I doing enough?
Right.
Like, am I, like, is it okay to be not ignorant, but is it okay to remove myself from those conversations, the political conversations, all that stuff? Because it's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
It's so exhausting. Like, I'm just dealing with all this right now, like my brother, my family, everything, and it's like,
well, and
when am I allowed to be selfish and just like stop everything? Then I feel guilty about that.
I don't
There's no
think
right answers.
There's no because there aren't really cut and dried answers. I mean, like I talked about scaling before, and like yeah, like this kind of stuff, like when your parents die or a loved one dies, you know, like it makes like what people think of the Star Wars movies or Game of Thrones or which
or the Epic Games store.
which store to use or like you know whatever. Like it makes that kind of stuff just like not interesting.
Yeah.
And like you know. In a way, it's nice if people can be that passionate about that stuff because it's like, hey, that means your life must be great, and not a judgment thing. Like I think it's great to be passionate and a fan of Star Wars and whatever, as long as you don't get like mean about it, like whatever,
Yeah.
it's fine, it's great. Not judging that, but it's just like for me personally, like, you know, and I mean I've always kind of been the person where it's like by and large. I'll like go to Star Wars, enjoy it or not, and then go home, you know. And it's
Yeah.
like whatever. It was good. It was fine. It was whatever. Like the casino stuff was stupid. Whatever. I don't care. And I love Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like the song makes me want to cry. Like
Yeah.
every time I see it on a big screen, you know. Like, but I
Yeah.
can also just like not yell at people on the internet about it. Whatever. But like,
Totally.
yeah, the scaling of it definitely puts things in perspective. And like our jobs being what they are, like partially public facing. It's really interesting because like there have been times where I've wanted to tweet like political things or whatever, but then I just don't not because I don't have beliefs and not because I don't fight for what I think is right, but I do that in my own time and like I don't care what Twitter has to say about my thoughts on that. Like it doesn't matter to me. And like all I would be doing would be inviting people to like clap back at me. And it's like you know, and like I think that I want to live my life in a way where it's like visible the things probably that I believe in, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not interested in a debate. I'm not going to debate with you,
Yeah.
Dennis. What is it? From Fargo? Whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah. I will not be drawn into another financial debate with you, Dennis. I will not.
Yep.
Jerry. I'm not going to debate you, Jerry. I'm not going to sit here and debate. That's in Fargo.
The movie or the show?
The movie.
Nice.
Steve Buscemi says that. But anyway, back on track. Yeah. Like yeah, so like it's interesting having had like chemical depression cuz like depression is not something that you are. You're not like broken, there's nothing wrong with you. it's something that you have. It's a
Yeah.
disease. And like grief, like what we're also both experiencing right now, is sort of a similar thing. It's like a very natural response. And like you can't do it wrong. I mean, I guess if it leads you to like sabotage your life or like, not go out of the house, see your friends, go to work, whatever, like then it becomes more of a problem. And that, sounds more like depression. But like, I think, and I mean, like, I'm not a psychiatrist. I've been to a lot. I've been working on like looking within myself for most of my life, and so I have like a little experience with it. But like, the answers are different for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, so for me, like distancing became the thing. Like after depression, I became depersonalized because I think that was my brain's way of just like handling it.
Yeah.
And that started before my mom died, And then when my mom died, it sort of like cracked me back into reality a little bit because I was like, okay, these are the things that matter. And around the same time, that therapist told me it was okay to think like that, sort of. And I was like, whoa, that's cool. So now it's like, I'm more inside my body and everything. And yeah, so another thing that he taught me is we've been talking a lot about like the negatives and like the bad stuff. Very loud music just began. I don't know if you could hear it, but let's talk about the positives, like tools that you can use if you're experiencing these things. And I want you to know that it's not, you're never, ever beyond hope. I had a friend who committed suicide, and then his mom shortly thereafter did as well. And it was just devastating. And like his brother is one of my best friends growing up. And like, it was just so life-changing for all of us too. I mean, let alone their family. But like, I just wish, and like, their family was no stranger to mental issues, and it's just like, I wish that there had been a way to reach out and tell him before things got to that point. And like, a message to like everyone is just like, the strong choice is getting help. That's the scary thing. People think they have to like weather this stuff in silence. And like, I think that that's the weaker, and like, it's weaker to try to be like the strong man or whatever than to admit that something's not right and go find help, because that's the scary thing to do. And that's the right thing to do. And like, I just wish that we had seen it sooner, and it's just such a waste for my friend. And there have been other situations in my life where like people have reached out to me, on the cusp of that sort of decision. And like, we were able to talk it through and stuff like that. And like, I cherish that happened, that they reached out, and like, that's the right thing to do. And like, if you're feeling like that ever, there will be someone you can reach out to. Maybe it's not your parent or a friend. Maybe it is like a trusted adult colleague or someone else, but like someone cares. And if not, there are hotlines that you can call, but I think there will almost always be someone who cares, even if it doesn't feel like that, even if you don't know that there's someone. And like, you really never know who will show up for you, because I bet it's more people than you think. But if you're not to that degree and you just feel like total ass all the time, like I used to when I was a kid, it was just darkness all the time.
Yeah.
And like early therapists when I was a kid, they were like, circle your bad thoughts and pretend to throw them away or whatever. And like, I would always try it as a kid and it just didn't work. Like, it didn't work. They would come back. And you and I were talking about meditation one time.
Yeah.
And you said that you were bad at it because thoughts kept coming.
Yeah.
And like, I think I said to you then, and I'll say it again, like, and I maybe some of this is repetition, but like, you can't be bad at meditation. You just can't. Like, I mean, you can, I guess, if you're like blasting lightning bolt and like eating popcorn and whatever. I don't know. But like, I don't know how you'd be bad at it. But like, what I mean is like, you can't really do it wrong if you're trying.
Yeah.
And like, my therapist, who taught me a lot of great things, the previous therapist that I had, taught me about like the id and the ego and the superego. I mean, I knew about them, but like, he phrased it in a way that was super cool. Is like the thought of like, you're sitting down, you're trying to meditate, and a thought comes through, and then the first thing that you think is like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking that right now. I'm trying to meditate. That's your ego, whose job is like fight or flight and like judgments, right? That's just your ego doing its job, and you can just say to it, thanks. I appreciate that's what you're here for.
Thanks for the tip.
Thanks for the tip, but it's all right, and then you just acknowledge that a thought is happening and let it go through,
Yeah.
and like extend that into every part of your life. Like self-judgment, I think, is a source for a lot of this stuff for people. Like, oh, these clothes make me look bad, or oh, I harmed myself. I shouldn't be doing that. And it's like, yeah, those aren't positive behaviors, self-harm and things like that. But like the judgment on top of that on yourself is only going to compound the issue. And like the tool that therapist gave me to deal with that sort of stuff, I wasn't self-harming, but just like judgment, self-judgment, that kind of stuff, was something he called inquiry, where you like ask, and I think I've talked about this before, but like you just ask why to yourself over and over again, like you're a little 2-year-old asking a parent, like, well, why this, why that, until it gets like, some comedian said like, it gets like theoretical. You don't understand. I don't remember who that was, but hopefully it wasn't Louis C.K. But so like you say to yourself, like, okay, I feel bad for doing this thing. And then you say, well, why? And you say, okay, well, because I think I shouldn't have acted like that or whatever. And you say, why? And you say, well, because I feel embarrassed. And you say, okay, well, why? And then blah, blah, blah. Like you drill down whatever it is, And I don't want to use a specific example, just like generally, you can do this for almost anything. And like you drill down until the core thing. And I think a lot of people in the world right now could use this just on the whole. And I think the answer is a lot of times you're afraid. I think we talked about this in the fear episode. Yeah. But like sometimes the answer is just like I have a chemical imbalance in my brain, and then there's help for that. Yeah. Like it's curable, it's treatable.
I just rely on others around me,
Yeah.
I don't know if I rely too much, but like my family, I just lean on them for everything, and I'm lucky to have that.
Very.
Not everyone has that.
Yeah.
I don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
But that's like my main source of strength.
That's great.
To get through things,
Yeah, I mean,
like I'm lucky to know that I always have somebody close I can talk to about anything.
Yeah. And I wager that's true for people more than they know. Like sometimes I hear people say like, "Oh, I've got nobody. I'm so alone," And it's like, I'm sure there are times where that's true, but like there are way more times where that feels true and it's just not. Yeah. And like, again, there are those hotlines that you can talk to. Otherwise, like, sometimes there have been times in my life where like there are things I need to talk about, people I need to talk to, and I was just afraid. But then once I did, I've been fortunate, I think, that like most of the time they turned out all right. Mm-hmm. Like the sad thing is in this life is like there are people whose parents don't support them. There are people who don't have a lot of friends, for whatever reason. And it's like, yeah, that's a reality. And like that's a temporary problem, Like many things in life are a temporary problem. And you don't need a permanent solution to a temporary problem, Like the only way out is through. Like things do get better. I know it sounds hokey, but like things can get better. They almost always do if you put in the work and make it through. And like making a choice like suicide is just always a waste, Yeah. Always.
My dad always says it can always be worse.
Yeah.
Because technically it can.
And like.
It can always be worse.
Absolutely. Like, for sure. And it's interesting to, like, I mean, maybe you would think this too. Like, it's interesting to be able to, like, say, like, oh, this particular day was, like, the worst day of my life so far.
Yeah.
And, like, it's interesting to be an adult and at this time and be able to say, like, okay, yeah, that was probably it, Yeah. And, like, hopefully things don't get worse than that, but they could. And they could always get worse, but they can always get better. Mm-hmm. And like
you never know.
Knowing which day is the best day of your life is not always as clear, maybe. But
it's like a coin flip every time I walk out of the house. Yeah. It's gonna be a good one or a bad one.
Yeah. Everyone's one day away from being the Joker.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like there aren't like it's interesting. My dad, when he was, when we were there, when he was in hospice, he would say, like, I know you want the answers, about me or my sister. And, I would say, well, I know there aren't really answers, And then he would also say, like, just try to live as well as you can for as long as you can and try to make the world a better place. And I was just like, well, that's the only answer you
It's the
need.
best.
That's the only answer you need.
Yeah.
Like, that's the meaning of life right there. You know, that's it. Everything boils down to that. And, like,
Wish everyone did that.
yeah, it's funny. I think that everybody should go to therapy, even if they're not depressed, because self-awareness is always good.
Yeah.
And, like, being able to self-assess and say, like, oh, I'm being a jerk, or like, oh,
Get a
I'm
neutral party's perspective.
right. Yeah, get a disinterested third party
Yeah.
to assess what's happening
Yep.
for you. Um,
Yeah, I saw some back in the day. It's been a while for me.
yeah,
When I was growing up, saw like 2 different occasions,
yeah,
but it's been like at least a decade now.
it's good. I'm seeing one right now, and she's really good. It's nice. I mean, it's like anything else. Like, you know, you can get a bad one, and you can get a great one, and you can get a medium one. You have to trial and error until you find one that you like.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just hit the nail right on the head and get the right one right off the bat. It's pretty great.
Like life.
Yeah. Everything's just chance, you know. And it's
Life is essentially sad with moments of happiness. Robert Redford.
Robert Redford.
Yep.
That's interesting. Guess it's a point of view thing, but I don't want to leave anyone with like I don't want this episode to make people feel more dour than they were coming in, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think like, you know, we've been going through a hard time and we're trying our best to just like keep going and stay out there, and like, you know, sometimes it's tough to find the motivation and like to find the interest in things. I mean, depression, one of the key side effects is like disinterest in things you used to be interested in, you know, and like that happens.
Like turning on video games and looking at all of them and just being like, no.
I mean, like, I was already like pretty judicious, you know me.
Yeah.
And then like when my mom died and my dad died, is like even more so. I was just like, I'm not gonna spend time on this. Drop it like a hot rock, which is fine. Like that's fine if you just do it without letting it be depressing for you.
Yeah.
A resource I found helpful, a book called Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. I really liked. Sort of I like Zen Buddhism because it's like sort of like the absurdist philosophy in a certain sense. Like I classify myself, I guess, as an absurdist more than anything. If you don't really need a title for what you are because you just are you. But like a lot of fun stories in there, good stuff. But
When I was in China, I went to a Buddhist temple and I like looked in there was like this back room, and I wish I could have taken a picture, but it would have been so rude. But there were like 4 Buddhist monks just all on their cell phones, like, hanging out. It was so great.
hey, man.
They're
One
people
of-
just like us.
One of my favorite, I think I've told this before, but one of my favorite Zen stories from that book, not the one about the tigers, but that one's really good too. This one is these 2 monks were walking down the street, and there was a flooded stream that had like overflowed the path, you know, and it was like 4 or 5 feet deep, you know.
Yeah.
And there was a beautiful woman standing on the side of it, and she was like wearing super nice clothes and was like trying to figure out how to get across without destroying her entire outfit and everything. And one of the monks just picked her up and carried her across, set her down on the other side, and then they kept walking, the 2 monks. And whereas before they were having this lively conversation, now the 2 monks, like, it was walking in silence, and the younger one was kind of just like fuming and like thinking, and then the one who had picked up the woman, you know, was just kind of like trotting along, no problem. And then finally the younger one is just like, why did you do that? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, why'd you pick that lady up? You know, we're not supposed to, like, at the time, I guess monks weren't supposed to associate with women or whatever, some stupid crap. But like, he's like, you know, we're not supposed to touch women, you know? And then he just goes, I put her down back by the stream. You're still carrying her.
Oh, deep.
And it's like, yeah, you can be a part of this world. You don't have to be like some like weird whatever thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you're hungry, you eat. If you're thirsty, you drink. That's my miracle. That's from another part in that book. But
Sounds like a good book.
it's a lot of just fun. They're little digestible stories.
Yeah.
And a lot of them just are like funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, I like Zen stories just because they're fun. But like, they have a lot of nuggets of wisdom too. But anyway, Positivity. What's a positive note to end this on?
Bonds.
Bonds.
When life gets you down, embrace the bonds. Straight up. Like, my brother's gone, but my parents are still here. So
Yeah.
just try to talk to him every day and tell him I love him and lean into those bonds, man.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it's all about for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely like talk to my sister a lot and that kind of stuff. I think like personal practices too, like find things that help you. If it's, taking a walk or meditating
I go for
or
walks.
breathing, playing an old game that you love, like if you're feeling dark, know that it's a passing moment.
Bask in it.
Yeah, like don't
But then get
judge
out of the
yourself.
tub.
Right, don't judge yourself for feeling that way.
Yeah.
Acknowledge that that's how you feel, but know that this is something that's happening to you by and large. It's not your fault. You're not broken. Nothing is wrong with you. There's something happening in your mind that's making you feel this way, sure, but like whether it's grief or chemical imbalance, depression, whatever it is, there are steps forward to move forward. You can talk with people, you can breathe, you can do these things, and you can always get through it. Like I promise you. And it might take a long time for some people. Sometimes other people find that they find the right thing and it's just poof, one day that, it's gone. Sometimes it's just about managing it. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then, someday it's gone. Some days it's just manageable. And it's possible.
It's like I always think about like sequels I want, and it's harder to think about like a new thing. I think that's kind of the thing with like happiness too. Because I can always like think of depressing shit that happens. Like, the well of depression is unlimited. But there's like so many unforeseen happy things that can go down.
Yeah.
I think it's just really hard to like picture it,
Yeah.
Some stranger can come into your life and completely change it, and
you just have to be there for it.
yeah, you can walk out and you're taking a walk, and the next thing you know, you have a new passion and a new goal in life.
Right. And it's like when you're mired in this stuff, like I was when I was a teenager, it's like it's so easy to just dwell, and it's like it's easy to like forget happiness exists and to like not believe that it can ever happen again, like when you're in that moment. It's like when you're sick, like if you have a stomach upset or something. It's like impossible to imagine not feeling that way.
Yeah.
You don't remember what it was like to not be wrenching in stomach pain or whatever until later on you're fine again, and it's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all just need some mental Pepto-Bismol.
Hang in there.
Hang in there. And we're here for you.
One day at a time.
The community's here for you. Like if you're watching this still, I bet, and you're having a hard time, reach out.
Embrace the bonds.
People in the Easy Allies community, they'll bond with you.
Yeah, they will.
And like, if we see something on Twitter, we'll try our best. We can't see everything, but like, yeah, I don't know. Just like there are always people for you, and you're a person too, and you can be there for other people. And yeah, hopefully this was a helpful episode. I don't know. Just kind of talking.
We're all going through it.
Yeah, just kind of talking about
We're
it.
all in it together.
Like Red Green says. Did you ever see that show?
No.
It's like a Canadian public access, or not public access, but like PBS kind of a show.
Nice.
This like handyman guy fixed everything with duct tape.
Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Kind of. It was funny. It was a funny, weird show.
Nice.
Anyways, well, thanks, Huber. I know
Thank
I talked
you.
a lot. I don't.
It's
hopefully
good. I like listening, man.
All right. Okay.
I like it.
I'm passionate about this subject, I guess. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully this helped you out and didn't bum you out. We'll see you next week, probably with something a little less dour.
Yeah. Because it's a new day.
It's a new dawn. It's a
New
new
day.
day. It's a new life.
Yes, it is.
Bye, everyone.